Hello, beautiful people. It's Lulu. First, I want to say how grateful and excited I am that you're here, that you chose to hit play on my podcast, and that you're choosing to spend this time with yourself, for yourself. I'm so thrilled. That decision alone is a tiny deposit in your mental fitness bank, and I see you for making it. You moved me to tears this week. Your messages. After our last episode on mental fitness, so many of you reached out, sharing what's really going on in your lives. The uncertainty you're facing, the sadness that sometimes feels too heavy to carry, the guilt that whispers you're not doing enough, and questions about how to support someone who's struggling. You spoke, I listened, and I'm here with tools that work in real life, not in Instagram-worthy moments, but in the messy, complicated reality that we all live in. Today is different. Instead of me sharing my thoughts, I'm answering your questions directly with tiny tools you can use right in the moment with very little time to help you find your way when the weight is heavy, when the fog sets in, and when your heart aches and uncertainty grips you. Because sometimes that's all we need, just enough support to take the next breath. Welcome to the Lulu Essey podcast, where we do things differently. There is no editing, no polish. These are real, raw, honest conversations that give you practical tools to transform your life from the inside out. Last week, we talked about what mental fitness really means. It's about the capacity to stay engaged with your whole life, the magnificent and the messy, and everything in between. Today, we're making it practical with tools you can use to help you find your way through those challenging emotional moments we all face. These tiny tools do not invalidate the weight of what you're feeling. And sometimes you'll need to use them repeatedly. I do this with myself all the time. These aren't magic wands. They're emotional anchors in your tough moments. They give you just enough support to take the next step. So many of you wrote to me about uncertainty. So while uncertainty isn't an emotion in and of itself, it's deeply emotional because our brains don't like not knowing, and that lack of clarity tends to provoke strong emotional responses. We all know that feeling when the ground beneath you feels shaky, when you can't see what's coming next. That anxiety that comes with the great unknown. One listener shared, "I feel like I'm walking through fog and I can't see 2 steps ahead of me. I feel this so deeply. I am facing major uncertainty in my own life right now concerning my job. It is so real, so visceral, I can almost taste it. That feeling of not knowing, it's like my brain goes into overdrive, trying to create certainty where there isn't any. Truth is, true certainty can only ever come from the inside. But when that fog of uncertainty closes in, I use a tool I call this moment only. It's simple, but it's an absolute lifeline. You stand still, feet firmly on the ground, take a slow, deep breath, and say to yourself, in this moment only, and name what is true right now. Not what might happen, not what could go wrong, not what you think is going to unfold. Just what is. For example, in this moment only, I am safe. In this moment only, I am breathing. In this moment only, I have choices. This brings you back to now, where your power lives. We can't control tomorrow, but we can come home to ourselves right here. It's not about denying reality or pretending everything's fine. It's about anchoring yourself in what is actually true right now, rather than getting swept away by the what-ifs of tomorrow. I know we all crave certainty. We want it so badly. And sometimes it is just out of our control. But this moment, right here, right now, is completely within our control. And what we choose to think is always within our control. But it does require discipline to not just keep running on the thought treadmill of what if. And if you've been with me for a while, you'll recognize how this complements our facts versus feelings tool we talked about in episode 15. Instead of getting lost in the story about what uncertainty means, we are grounding ourselves in what we can verify right now. I know we want verification of tomorrow, but the truth is nobody really has that. All we ever have is right now, and that is enough. I use this tool to move through this period of uncertainty with my job. Sometimes I use it several times a day. I'll be real. Does it magically resolve the situation? Nope. But it gives me enough clarity and calm to take the next step forward rather than spiraling into panic. What I love about this practice is that it helps us build the capacity to hold uncertainty without being consumed by it. Because the truth is, uncertainty is a constant in life. The question isn't how to eliminate it. It's how to build the strength to carry it and still move forward. The second emotion many of you mentioned was sadness. One message that particularly touched me said, "Sometimes the sadness feels so heavy. I don't know how to move with it. Everyone keeps telling me I'm so lucky to have the life I have, and it just makes me feel even worse." I hear you. And can I just say, there are few things more isolating than having someone tell you you're so lucky. Or the one I often get is, you have a lot to be grateful for. And yes, we all do have so much to be grateful for. And at the same time, we can also feel sad, depressed, heavy. To be told this when we're in pain is what I call emotional bypassing. It is not mental fitness. Real sadness, whether it comes from loss, disappointment, or just those blue periods we all experience, deserves to be acknowledged and accepted and not just rushed past. So I want to share a tool that has helped me move with sadness rather than against it. I call it the kind witness, and it's something you can do in very little time when sadness feels particularly heavy. First, place a hand on your heart. Science shows that this physical touch activates our parasympathetic nervous system, which helps calm our brain's stress response. But really connect with your body. Feel that hand pressing on your heart. Then imagine stepping slightly to the side of your experience, becoming a kind witness to your own sadness. From this perspective, say to yourself, I see you. I see the sadness. It's okay that it's here. Don't rush to fix it. Don't try cheer up. Just witness with kindness. What makes this different from wallowing? It's the perspective shift. You're not becoming the sadness. You're witnessing it with kindness. This tiny bit of space helps you carry the emotion without being crushed by it. And it also helps to not over-identify with it. Language is incredibly important here too. So instead of saying, I am sad, try, I feel sad. This shift has an impact that is huge. It reminds our brain this is a state, not our identity. This shift from being in the emotion to being with the emotion can be everything. You're still feeling it, but you're holding space for it. I've used this, and I used it last year when I was sitting on the subway, feeling heavy and painful about a rejection. Right then and there on the subway, I placed my hand on my heart and simply said, I see how much this hurts, and it's okay that it's here. I said it a few times and something started to shift. Not dramatically, but enough that I could get home in one piece. It shifted enough that I could take the next step. It's about building our capacity to be with difficult emotions, which is a crucial skill for mental fitness. Let's not fall into the trap of always trying to fix difficult emotions. We just need to be able to be with them so that we can take the next step, and then the next, and then things start to unfold in ways that are helpful, and we can see things with more clarity. Let's talk about guilt. Guilt, that persistent feeling that we're not doing enough, that we should be better, stronger, more productive. One listener wrote to me, I constantly feel guilty for not being further along in my business, for not handling things better. It's so tiring. First, I want to acknowledge something. Guilt is exhausting. It drains us of the very energy we need to create the changes we want. And what's fascinating is that guilt often masquerades as motivation when it's exactly the opposite. When guilt shows up, I use a tool inspired by Byron Katie's work that I've adapted to complement our facts versus feelings exercise. I call it question the thought. This is how it works. When you notice that voice of guilt speaking to you, I should be handling this better, I'm not doing enough, or you should have more success by now, pause and ask yourself 3 questions. Number 1, is the thought absolutely true? Can I be 100% certain? Second, how do I feel and act when I believe this thought? And third, who would I be without this thought? This creates an immediate shift in perspective. Instead of being trapped inside the thought, you're now examining it with curiosity, creating space around it, and you're not attaching your identity to that thought. Let me share how this worked for me recently. I was feeling guilty about not making progress on my coaching practice fast enough. The thought was, I'm falling behind and I'm letting people down. I'm letting myself down. I should be further along than I am. When I asked, is this absolutely true? I realized I couldn't be 100% certain. I didn't actually know what others expected. There's no rule book around how far I should be by now. And behind was absolutely my own judgment, not a fact. When I asked, how do I feel when I believe this thought? Oh, the answer was clear. I feel full of despair, disappointed, anxious, paralyzed, panicked. And when I asked, who would I be without this thought? I felt the tightness in my chest ease, my shoulders dropped, and I saw that I'd be focused, present, clear, and confident to take the next step. This isn't about denying responsibility, and by now you know that I don't believe in letting ourselves off the hook, but I do believe in grace. This process is about questioning thoughts that keep us stuck in guilt and moving forward with clarity and confidence. And I want to acknowledge Byron Katie, whose work has influenced this approach. And I've adapted it to fit, especially with our facts versus feelings exercise. The last question that some of you asked was how to support someone who's struggling with their mental health. One listener wrote, my partner is going through a really hard time and I feel helpless. I want to say the right thing, but I'm afraid of making it even worse. This touches me deeply because we've all been on both sides of this, needing support and wanting to give it. And sometimes the most well-intentioned words like, everything happens for a reason, or this too shall pass, can actually create more distance. The tool I want to share is called present, not perfect. And it's something you can remember in those moments when someone you care about is struggling. Being present doesn't mean having perfect words. It means creating space where the other person doesn't have to pretend they're okay when they're not. This looks like simply saying, I'm here, instead of trying to solve their problem. It looks like asking, what do you need right now? And accepting if the answer is, I don't know, or nothing. It looks like acknowledging their feelings without trying to change them. That sounds really hard, instead of saying, but it will get better. I remember when a friend was going through a devastating loss. I felt this pressure to say something profound or helpful. But she later told me that what meant the most to her was when I simply sat with her in silence, holding her hand. I wasn't fixing anything, I was just there. There's a profound difference between trying to fix someone's pain and being willing to witness it with them. And sometimes the most supportive thing we can do is create a space where all feelings are welcome, not just the comfortable approach, the comfortable ones. This approach takes tremendous pressure off both people. You don't have to have magical words that make everything better. And they don't have to pretend to feel better for your sake. Being present with love and compassion, being present without judgment, being present without expectation, that is what support looks like. It's not always easy to do, though. So have compassion for yourself too. We're all trying to get through this messy, sometimes really hard thing called life. Cultivate space and for presence and acceptance. Truth is, you don't just do this for the other person. You're doing it for yourself. Because learning this practice increases our emotional resilience. It's truly a win-win. And I have been blessed to be the giver and the receiver of true presence. And receiving that gift, which I've shared with you before, when I was going through my darkest times, was truly immeasurable. And it's a gift that lives on in my heart today and will continue to live there. Beautiful people, thank you again for spending this time with me. Today we've explored 4 powerful tiny tools for those challenging emotional moments. This moment only for uncertainty, the kind witness for sadness, question the thought for guilt, present, not perfect, for supporting others. These tools aren't about creating instant transformation. They're about building your capacity to engage with your life fully, wholly, and completely. All of it. And that's what mental fitness is really about. Think of these tools as tiny, important deposits in your mental fitness bank. I go in depth on this in episode 11, so go back and have a listen. Each time you use any of these tiny tools, you're strengthening those neural pathways that help you respond rather than react, that help you stay present rather than shut down or spiral. And here's what I really want you to hear. Your mental fitness is worth investing in. It's not a luxury or an indulgence. It's fundamental. Because when you strengthen your mental fitness, it amplifies everything good in your life. And it also turns down the volume on things that aren't going the way you want them to. because it helps you to have the clarity and the confidence to take the next small step forward. It's the foundation that supports everything else. And if you're a first-time listener, I want to be clear that while I share tools that have worked for me and others, I am not a mental health professional. These are my personal insights based on my experiences. They are not medical advice. For those of you who know me, you know this is central to these conversations. I honor professional support, and these tools are meant to complement, not replace, professional care. If you're struggling significantly with your mental health, please reach out to a professional who can provide the specialized support you deserve. And beautiful people, this is just the beginning. In the coming weeks, I'll be introducing you to a framework I've been developing that I'm so excited about, called The Tiny Way to Big Impact. It's a systematic approach to creating meaningful change through small, consistent actions. And I can't wait to share it with you. If this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who needs these tools. I'm sure you have at least 2 people in your life who could benefit from hearing this. And DM me on Instagram at lulu.essey with the word tool and tell me, which of these tools resonated most with you today? Or what emotional challenge would you like support with in a future episode? Because we're in this together. Your questions shape this podcast, and your experiences matter deeply to me. And as always, what comes from the heart reaches the heart. And today, like every day, with compassion, love, and honesty, this comes straight from my heart to yours.